Rebel Force Radio presents
Jedi cannot help what they are. Their compassion leaves a trail.
The fight is done. We lost.
Stay hidden.
Where is he?
This is the RFR Obi-Wan Kenobi After Show. After Show.
Oh yeah, a whole lot of action to talk about this week on Rebel Force Radio. Obi-Wan Kenobi After Show. I mean, that's really what this episode was. It was a big rescue. And a couple of different rescues, it seemed like. We're going to break it all down here. Thanks for being with us. It's going to be fun to hang out for the next couple of hours. We will be taking your calls a little bit later on, so please have your thoughts and your theories ready to go. We are more than halfway done with this series, maybe season. We don't know. Time will tell. And I feel like we just got started, and now we only have 2 episodes to go. So I was a little sad about that. But then, in some ways, this episode felt a little bit like maybe a stretch. They were stretching at times. We'll talk all about it here. So you're in the right place if you want to talk Star Wars and Obi-Wan Kenobi. If you're new to the program, introductions in order. My name is Jason, and with me this week and always, my good friend and yours from Chicago, Jimmy Mack.
Hey, Jason. Hey, Star Wars fans. I am fresh out of the back to tank and ready to talk about all things Kenobi this week on the Kenobi After Show. And I think we got a lot to talk about. So, yeah, Jason, you know, you say it's a stretch. I think I know where you're coming from on that because, you know, just right out of the gate, I want to say that the show is repeating itself. 2 Leia rescues.
Yeah.
So I get what you're saying because, like last week, they could have ended the episode without Leia getting kidnapped, and the show would still be the same. You know, nothing changed with Leia getting kidnapped, except perhaps the Empire has more information about the Organa family and the fact that they are Jedi sympathizers. But still, Bail Organa serves on the Imperial Senate for 10 more years, and Leia also becomes a senator.
Yes.
I don't know. I don't know if Bail serves the next 10 years. Maybe Leia takes his place. I'm not really sure how that all works. But I assumed he was still...
But
he was still a senator. He was still a senator in Rogue One. So, of course.
You're absolutely right because, on the one hand, it's like really cool that they're gaining this information, but then you start to go, wait a minute. Is this too much information? Should they know this much about these people at this time? Luckily we have the next couple of hours to break it down and discuss it, but I'm really excited. We've got a rarity. You know, it takes a special person to be a guest on one of our after shows. You know, we've got a small list of people that have actually been guests, and this guy, I'm really excited. Any chance we get to talk to him is special. But this week it's especially special because he is in the house. Ladies and gentlemen, FJ DeSanto, one of Rebel Force Radio listeners' favorites, is going to be hanging with us. We haven't had a chance to talk to FJ about Kenobi. So this is sort of, we're serving a couple of purposes. We're going to be able to talk to him about this episode in particular, as well as sort of look back on the, what we've seen so far this past previous four episodes. So FJ, great to have you, man. Welcome back to RFR.
Chut, boys. I'm very excited to be here.
Well, we're excited to have you. All right. So you've been on the show many times, and when you come on surrounding with a particular focus on a new Star Wars show, live action, animation, doesn't matter. One of our favorite things that we like to do with you is we like to play this prophet or loser, because you do. I mean, you're a guy, you work professionally in the industry, and so you're a guy that knows how the sausage is made. You're a guy that knows how to write. You've ran multiple series. You've got something new that you'll be telling us about here shortly. A trailer dropped for that. That'll be exciting. But so you bring a unique perspective, is what I'm saying. So you've been able to sometimes wow us with your professorial insights, and you've also kind of, fallen a little short here and there. Yeah.
Drop the ball.
Become a big loser. But
Exactly.
no, we got to talk about this series. I've been saying that it's the most ambitious live-action Star Wars series to date. And when I say that, because I've had some people criticize it, what do you mean? I don't know. The budget's not shown as hot here as it did on The Mandalorian. What I mean is, I feel like there's more at stake with this series, given the characters, certainly the principal character that it surrounds, and now knowing that Leia is a huge figure, the Larses is, all of that. So I think it's, is it fair to say that it's ambitious?
Yeah, it's certainly ambitious because it's gutsy that they're trying to fill these weird gaps. You know what I mean, in the canon. So it's gutsy in sort of taking this decision of, hey, Obi-Wan's going to go on this this adventure with baby Leia and do all this crazy shit. And it's like, you wouldn't think of it, but when you think about it, it's like, oh, that's actually a pretty good idea. And I go into all these things with Star Wars blinders. I just want to preface that, which is, I just love being in this world, so I'm never going to ever hate anything. My objectivity is questionable when it comes to Star Wars because I just really like it. And, I admire the ambition of the series. Here's the thing with the 3 series that have come out so far, right? Is Obi-Wan Kenobi comes with the weight of Obi-Wan Kenobi, of this insanely pivotal character that hovers over the entire franchise and is the catalyst for so much of what we see. Good and bad, meaning, he's responsible for Vader, but he's also a great Jedi, all these things. So the show comes with a weight of expectation, especially where literally the only actor who's been recast in Star Wars that nobody has a problem with, with Ewan McGregor, who's absolutely great. Subsequently, I'm going backwards, is Boba Fett comes with the same weight of expectation, but comes with an insane unknown variable because he had such little screen time and such a little backstory. And the problem with Boba Fett becomes everything we spent 40 years or whatever it was thinking of Boba Fett, playing with the toys and imagining who this guy is, etc. All that cool shit went to the Mandalorian. So you have to create this whole new sort of arc and character journey for Boba Fett. And so the reason I bring this up is sort of to sort of contrast the 3 series and sort of lead into, Obi-Wan, which comes in, like I said, with this insane weight of expectation of not only Obi-Wan's going to show up in this, but Vader's going to show up in this, which is insane. So the whole show on paper seems like this giant contradiction of canon. This contradiction of, does Leia know him? What about when Vader and Obi-Wan fight in New Hope? And he sort of goes, when I left you, I was the learner, now I'm the master, all this stuff. And by the way, I think they're smart enough to understand that they're going to answer those questions. I'm convinced there's going to be some bit at the end where Obi-Wan says to Leia, like, pretend we never met, kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like, act like, for your own safety, you never saw me, kind of thing.
Maybe you'll do a Jedi mind wipe.
I was thinking of like Superman 2. I was thinking of Superman 2 when he makes out with her and she forgets he's Superman and all that shit. But you can't do that with a 50-year-old man and a 10-year-old kid. So I want to preface, because I'm about to like really say things that are awful about the show, is that I like the show. I like the show it's great seeing Ewan McGregor back. It's great seeing Hayden back, even though he's barely been on it. Jimmy Smits was a great surprise. I knew in advance this was going to be about Leia. So that wasn't a big surprise.
So that doesn't count. You're not a prophet when it comes to that.
No. I'll tell you where I think it's going to go. But the weird thing is, and you guys have to understand, and I'm saying this as a producer, is COVID has had a big effect on filmmaking in the last 2 years. It's really tough to make these things, etc. where those first 2 seasons of Mandalorian were pretty much, the first one was done already, but the second one was shot, and they were able to be very sort of ambitious, right? And when you get to Boba Fett, these 2 shows both feel very small to me in scope. And I don't know if it's that the universe is getting smaller with the storytelling, but there's something about the directing of these episodes that just seems small. And the blocking of some of the action and stuff in Obi-Wan, especially the Vader Obi-Wan encounter, which starts off great. Vader coming into the town is awesome, and he's snapping kids' necks and shit like that. And I feel like, oh my
great.
God, like I'm genuinely scared of this guy. And then they're sort of running around a construction site, and the idea of like, I'm going to burn Obi-Wan to a crisp is so awesome. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like
eye for an eye,
and,
right?
And it connects, by the way, to the comic books where he's been dreaming of doing this, for years, all this stuff. And then it's sort of problematic in that how he escapes and all that stuff, and how Reva finds Leia in the tunnel and all this. Like the blocking just gets all very weird. Like I feel like they shot something different. It didn't work. So this is what they sort of cobbled together. But we're here to talk about the 4th episode, I guess. And
well, no, I want to know the whole scope. The whole scope of how you feel about the series. And
you know what it's like. It's like, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but it's like this with Star Wars, and even this applies to the sequel trilogy, which I still think all these shows are better than the second and third sequels. Everything with Star Wars is you're adding to this larger mythology, right? You're filling in blanks here and there. And I'm not a person who has a problem with that. There are people like, why does this even have to get made? Like Solo and all this stuff. And I'm like, why doesn't it get made? Like if there's a story to tell, there's a story to tell.
Right.
And I'm of the belief that every Star Wars story, whether you like it or not, is worth telling. Meaning, if you told me, I'm sure I've said this a million times in the last 5 years. If you told me the story of Last Jedi, I would think it was the greatest Star Wars movie ever made. The story. Well, Luke doesn't want to come back into battle. He won't train Rey. They're chasing him through space. They figured out how to track them in hyperspace. You're like, holy shit, this is a great movie, right? And the same thing applies to Boba Fett. If you sit there and go, Boba Fett wants to be, takes over Jabba's throne, and he wants to be blah, 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 and it's like, oh, that's cool. And it's the same thing here, except sometimes the execution's wonky. And I'm not going to dwell on the wonky execution of these things, but I do think, and I blame COVID for some of this, because I feel like some of the effects houses are backlogged. Some of the effects are coming out a little subpar at times, etc. But the story they're telling is interesting to me, right? Like it's like Obi-Wan is this broken man. And I can't understand why people would have an issue with this. It's like Obi-Wan created friggin' Darth Vader. Like you're gonna have some guilt over that shit, right?
Right.
You were one of the most prominent Jedi. Now they're all dead, and you were a part of this, right? And Padme's dead because you followed her to Mustafar. Like I don't understand how people. And the same thing with Last Jedi, except Last Jedi's payoff doesn't work with Luke, right? Like it's too small and it's too whatever. But at least Obi-Wan is like, I'm going to go back into battle. It takes convincing, but I'm going to go back. But why wouldn't he be broken? And the dude's been sitting in the friggin' cave in the desert for 10 years watching this little kid pissing off Joel Edgerton. And you know what I mean? Like, what are you going to do there? Like I'd be pretty depressed too. Like I'm depressed 2 years after being COVID and I'm in my house. You know what I mean? Like, I'm working.
Yeah.
It's like, like why wouldn't he bury the lightsabers? Like he's doing that to protect himself. Like I don't understand people who have the issue with, well, I don't get, this PTSD thing. It's like the whole point of the show, which we start to see glimpses of in this episode, is this guy coming back.
Yes.
And rediscovering why he joined this cause to begin with. And we've been very fortunate in sort of getting these little tidbits, like, the can of worms of, remembering his childhood and his brother. It's like, that's incredible. Like, that's incredible canon stuff that I'm sure somebody will ruin and, come up with bad ideas for it somewhere. But it'll
be ruined in the pages of comic books forever.
I don't know who I was saying this today, because, what happens is these episodes come out and I have to watch it like when I wake up at like 6 a.m. because the phone is
Right, of
every
course.
freaking spoiler is in it. And I forget who I was talking to. I think it was my friend Peter at Slash Film. And, it was like, you were sort of sitting there going, we've learned so much about this stuff. You know what I mean? Like we've now gotten this education on who this guy is, and he's slowly coming back into himself. He's slowly coming back, like when he recognizes the writing on the wall from Quinlan Vos and all that stuff. It's like, how do you not get that? There's a character arc here, and there's got to be some character development. It's like, how do you start him off? Like if you start him off, he's happy-go-lucky, running around at the cantina, hitting on chicks. You know what I mean? Like watching the kid during our kid's in bed. I'm going to go to the bar. Like you don't want any of that. You want this guy to be on this journey, and to sort of go into this episode is, I think they, like I said, in the third episode, I thought the blocking and the escape was really poorly executed. I thought everything until he puts Obi-Wan in the fire is really good. Like the dialogue between them, it feels like a young Vader. It feels like a younger Vader. Like you get a good connective tissue of Anakin and Hayden in that suit, which I think really works for me. So he's not perfect either. Like he's and you've got this stuff, and this is my biggest problem with the show is the Inquisitors, other than that one scene where they chop off a hand, they don't really do anything. So you have, Fast and Furious is just constantly bitching about Third Sister. It's like, why are you guys not out there like wrecking shit? You know what I mean? Like even the scene where Vader shows up, like they should have demolished that town while Vader's choking out teenagers.
Sung Kang. Yeah, the fifth brother. He's got one note. It's always sister. You're gonna get what's coming to you, sister.
Yeah, he doesn't ever do anything.
Brother.
Right. He does nothing.
There like
he does nothing, and we haven't even seen him in action at all. Has he even ignited his?
No, he hasn't.
lightsaber?
They stalk around. They even before the Grand Inquisitor can do anything, he gets killed. Which I thought was a good twist because it goes into the Reva character, the third sister. And this is, like I said, I was talking to my friend Peter at Slash Film today, and I'm literally looking at the text, so I said I'm going to mention this on the show today. You have to assume that the opening shot of the whole season of the Younglings, that the young girl is her, right? I think that leads. This is what I was talking to Peter about. Is that leads to her issue with Obi-Wan is personal. Because what Peter brought up was, you got to remember, they come back to the temple, him and Yoda in Sith, and then they send out a message just being like, hey, don't come back here. And they buzz off, right? Like, they don't go to help anybody. They just like, hey, I'm going to Dagobah. This guy's going to Tatooine. The other baby's going to Alderaan, all that stuff. And we're not going to fight. We're done. That's it, right? And that's when that guy said to him, the Jedi in the first episode, is, what happened to you? It's like, yeah, you guys gave up like that. Like Revenge of the Sith ends on an optimistic note of him handing off the kids, but there's a reality of that 10 years of that shit, right? So like, that's what, like I said, that's what Peter and I were talking about. Is I think her personal grudge is either he was a master to her or something like that, or she saw that message and was like, screw you guys for giving up. Like, how dare you? And I'm going to go to the dark side. Like she was easily, that rage of, these kids got left alone, and maybe these younglings that were with her died, and maybe that was one of those younglings that's in the tomb thing at the Inquisitor headquarters.
Yeah, I was getting vibes when she was interrogating Leia that it reminded me a bit of when Dooku is interrogating Obi-Wan in episode 2, because it's like full of half truths and like 3/4 truths. When Reva was interrogating Leia,
like Dooku. I remember like literally out loud like an asshole during Revenge of the Sith going, he's right. He wasn't really lying to him. Like, what if I told you he gives it up. He's like, what if I told you that everything's in control of the Sith? And it's like, and Obi-Wan's like, nah. And it's like, well, dipshit, guess what?
Yeah. And so Reva's doing that a bit with Leia. Something that we haven't actually talked about yet. And I wrote a note. I was driving to the day job and I dictated this note to myself, and I just got it, is that we haven't really talked about Leia's latent force powers that she's been exerting. I mean, at least I think we can assume that they're force powers. Maybe not. There's not a lot of overt stuff, but there's a lot of mind things going on. Like, one, in this particular episode, she resisted Reva's, Kylo Ren-esque ability to pull. That was a lot. The altercation she has with her cousin, where it's almost like she's, reading his mind. She's more than just perceptive. I think it goes a step further, and we're seeing these budding force powers. But I was always under the impression that until Luke told Leia on Endor, my sister has it, that there was no sign of force abilities or force powers with Leia. It was only almost like...
Because nobody was looking for it, Nobody was really looking for it. Just like with Anakin Skywalker. He was displaying the traits of a Force user, but nobody knew it. They just thought they were just chalking it up to sheer natural ability and a gift, but not necessarily being connected to the Force. With Leia, I think she is... displaying you said latent force abilities, which works for me, because I mean, she's not consciously using the Force. She's not trained to use the Force, but
Right.
there's an undercurrent there. Now, when she was dealing with her cousin, I think that she was just being sassy, but I don't think the Force had anything to do with that. Maybe she was able to read him like a book, easier than he had anticipated. But also, you have to keep in mind, Leia, doesn't always tap into that ability, because she thought that truck driver in the last episode was a nice guy who was going to help him out, and she was sorely mistaken in that situation. So she's not as savvy, I think, as we want to assume she is because of who she is.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a bit in this episode where she, when they're bringing her to the torture chamber, she really starts to crack. And I thought that was really, that felt real and genuine in terms of the response to it. Like, first, she defies the Force brain reading or whatever the hell it is. And that's really good. And I thought that was a great callback to literally her son doing this. That's the big thing, is like how these things connect. There's a lot of connective stuff in this, very Lucas-esque sort of connective tissue. That doesn't mean it all works, but the attempt is there. So something like that, where it's very clearly, like, here's something happening to her that her son's going to do in, whatever it is, 40 years. And, but to your point about the latent force abilities, I feel like they've been super subtle about it. Like, and you have to imagine, sort of what you were touching on before, Jason, that, there's 10 more years after this and she's a public figure. Right. So like, either I would imagine there's a fun story to be told about Bail Organa sort of like burying or hiding or changing of like her midi-chlorian test results or some some BS like that.
Right. And as she gets older, I could, to borrow, from another Disney property, the story of Frozen or the Ice Queen, the princess, whatever it is, she understands that she cannot display those abilities. She has to hold those abilities in. So if Bail and Bria, if they let her or get her to understand that that's something that she cannot exhibit, then she can bury those deep down. I also like the line in Return of the Jedi, the way she responds to Luke when he says, "And my sister has it." And she says, "I know. Somehow I've always known." And I think that that's sort of the way that I think Jim was mentioning earlier. That's the way her force powers work. It's like they're just under the surface. They're always operating. She's not even aware of what it is necessarily. Until maybe somebody points it out. Right. Exactly.
That probably protects her, keeps her, like no one there's recognizing that, even though Reva says to her, like, you're strong, like, well, you're just a strong-willed kid. Like, she's not thinking like that's the Force, right? But to go to your point about that scene in Return of the Jedi, and I'm hoping there's a payoff for that scene. Do you remember your real mother? And she's like, well, only images. Like, I'm hoping there's a bit where at the end where Obi-Wan's like, this was your mother. You know, because they tee it up in the third episode. You know, like, or you know, when she said, "Are you my father?" He's like, "No, I wish I was," but you know what I mean. Like, there's something to be played with that, if that makes sense. Like,
and she goes further. She goes further. She says she was very beautiful but sad, and so I wonder if there, you know, there was a lot of sadness.
Color all that in for her.
Yeah,
he's going to color that in for her.
I hope so. I hope so. Do you think they're thinking that at that level?
I would think so. I mean, look. I mean, when you look, Rogue One was conceived by the single idea of there's this little hole in the Death Star, and how did it get there, right? Mm-hmm. And why was it so easy to blow it up? And they retroactively made New Hope even better with Rogue One, which I think we can all admit is the best of the Disney era. And this, you know, like I was just reading the writer Joby Harold was doing an interview, and
the big Vanity Fair interview.
The Grand Inquisitor's dead, and doesn't that violate canon? He's like, I assure you, we didn't violate canon. And so I think there's some of these things that are so blatantly obvious to all of us, they need to be aware of. Like, you know, she knows him as Ben, not Obi-Wan, even though they say Obi-Wan in scenes like that.
Up until this episode, I just, why you mentioned that, up until this episode, it wasn't obvious to me that they were ever, in fact, I thought they were going out of their way for her to always be just off camera, out of earshot whenever he was being referred to as Obi-Wan, so that Ben Kenobi line plays in episode 4. But this episode really turned that on its head, because Reva is really explicit in saying, Obi-Wan Kenobi, he's dead, he's not coming for you. So I was disappointed with that, actually.
I was too.
But there's something interesting to that, which I just, I agree. But which is why I'm convinced they wouldn't do anything that blatant. And maybe I'm giving them too much credit. But I also think there's an opportunity for him to say, this is just my head, and I could be totally wrong about this, where he literally says, he could say later on to her, well, no, I'm Ben Kenobi. The Obi-Wan they're talking about is that brother I told you about. You know, and then she's like, oh, okay. You know, whatever. And it's dumb. It's dumb when I say it out loud. But, you know, like all
right, prophet or loser. That's going to be the first one. Are you going on record with that one? Should we put it down?
I'm going on record and saying they will address how she doesn't know him in New Hope.
All right. Obi versus
it could also
Ben.
Be, by the way, that she knew, you know, like if she didn't want that transmission, like, I don't know, that she didn't want it stolen or whatever, and she had to play dumb and whatever. But
I'm marking that down.
Yeah, but I'll go on the record. I'll go on the record
that they will resolve that. That they will resolve that.
I think they'll resolve that. I'll go through my laundry list. I think they'll resolve that. I think they'll resolve Reva as the kid in thing with the issue with Obi-Wan. I think she's that kid, and I think that's her issue with it. And I think her quest for Obi-Wan is not entirely to appease Vader.
Okay, well let's build on that real quick. Does she have a problem with Vader too, you think? Is Vader a tool, or is Obi-Wan the tool?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, because she seems to be the sort of redheaded stepchild of the Inquisitors.
Definitely.
Like the Inquisitors look down at her. So I have a feeling like there could be something where Vader rescued her, or, you know, recruited her, and she's the teacher's pet. And she could be using the situation to get revenge on Obi-Wan or appease Vader, or does she do a big 180 at the end and suddenly rediscovers why she was a Jedi to begin with, and then turns good, which I'm hoping is not the case. But
you don't want a redemption for Reva?
Yeah, I just feel like it's too obvious. I mean, the odds are, I bet you 90% it happens, but there's nothing that suggests, like the dumbest, stupidest version of this show is eventually she says to Obi-Wan, like, I've been looking for you to restart the Jedi, or something like insanely stupid like that. And you find out she was doing this all along, but she's slicing people's hands off and shit. You know what I mean?
She's
like,
aggressive.
She's definitely killed people. She's definitely, she's going to torture a little kid,
Yeah.
And so, look, Kylo Ren killed his dad and they found a way to redeem him, so it's like, same thing with Obi-Wan. I mean, I'm talking with Vader, he killed kids, he killed younglings, he's snapping necks and saved his own son at the end. So, I just feel like it's been done, and that's why I don't want to see it. But again, like everything with Star Wars, it's the execution. So but I do think she's that kid in the temple and all that.
Yeah. Otherwise, there was no reason to recreate that scene of the purge. Honestly,
no.
It has to. It has to pay off.
Grogu running by like, I'm out of here. Like that.
Yeah. Well, that's something I kind of expected we'd see with these episode 3 flashbacks to Order 66. That Grogu story is still floating out there, and we know that Lucasfilm is looking at this as sort of a big, expansive story that connects everything. So why not take the advantage of showing?
But even visually, it connects to that. When you have the flashback of Grogu remembering his escape, the aesthetic's the same and it's shot similarly, which I think is really cool. So there are ways.
Maybe that's something.
And that's a smart thing that they did. Boba Fett's a weird show. I'm going on the tangent really quick. Boba Fett's a weird show, but when it becomes Mandalorian 2.5 for those couple episodes, you realize you just saved them so many issues for Mandalorian season 3, where you could just hit the ground running. They're back together. Let's go on the new adventure, which Prophet or Loser is gonna. Well, we've seen some footage now, but it's the battle for Mandalore. The sword and all that. So it's gonna be him and Bo-Katan going at it and all that shit. And then
I think Grogu's getting a helmet.
I think he's gonna get the whole gear because they got to sell more toys. And
I think he's gonna get a helmet.
I think he's got the chainmail already, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, why not give him, something else to wear, like the chainmail thing with a Mandalorian helmet and all that stuff, which is just gonna be absolutely hilarious.
You can't go into battle. Getting back to this episode, I want to hear more of your prognostications and all of that. But getting back to this episode, what did you guys think about those trophies that were being guarded? Down.
My God,
that was something else. Because I couldn't tell if they were in stasis or were they. Yeah. I'm assuming they're dead. I don't know.
I didn't think that either. But when he says it's a tomb, you have to assume they're dead, right?
Something tells me they're in some sort of animated state. You know why? Because that amber that they were encased in reminded me of the amber fluid from Jurassic Park with the mosquito.
Yes.
And how they were able then to extract DNA from dinosaurs from that and everything. And so I was like, maybe it's the same fluid as Jurassic Park. And it just kind of makes me wonder, dudes in tanks. That's the thing with Star Wars. The last 4 Star Wars had dudes in tanks. Rise of Skywalker, Snoke's in a jar. Mandalorian, we had some sort of thing in a tank. We had in Bad Batch, and now this show, we have dudes in tanks. And if we don't have dudes in tanks, we're dropping dudes in tanks because everyone's going into Bacta these days, Right. It's just so funny that the certain elements of Star Wars that Disney really latches onto, Blue Milk, Hans Dice, Bacta tanks. That's their go-to.
Well, but I think there's something more to this tank thing. I mean, we know that Palpatine is working on a contingency plan, and that contingency plan goes back a long time. It probably predates Vader. And so why not have these? Why are the Inquisitors rounding up these Jedi? Are they killing all of them? What are they doing? Are they preserving them so that, parts of their DNA could be harvested? Jim, you brought that up about the mosquitoes, and that's what they use. They use the amber, you know, the mosquitoes frozen in amber as a way to extract the live DNA or whatever. So after you said you had a theory of that, does that line up with what you're talking about?
It's that. I think it's tying into some part of the program. It might not be addressed here, but also, you know, in the Inquisitor conference room, there's all lightsabers behind them in the trophy case.
I noticed that in those display cases.
You look really close, and I think that's everybody they've conquered. So I wouldn't be surprised. Like, why would you encase them in the Jurassic Park shit? You know what I mean? Like, and I think it is, you know, can we clone them? Can we harvest the midichlorians?
Right.
Et cetera? I think, is that the earliest stage of what we see in Mandalorian when they find those tanks, and then subsequently jump ahead to Rise of Skywalker when we see the Snoke tanks and all that stuff? Like, is that the connective tissue? I don't know, like, if they're going to sit there and address it there, but it was a cool thing. I think I would have had somebody a little more recognizable, like here's Kit Fisto or somebody that we all.
I thought I saw the Jedi with the horns, Saesee Tiin, right? Is that Saesee Tiin?
I
think so.
I thought the very first shot, and that's something I need to go back and rewatch, obviously, to see. But I'm with you. I was looking like there's got to be a clue here. But the only overt one was clearly a Jedi youngling with the helmet. That was interesting.
So, I mean, that's weird. It's like, you know, like, and again, it would have been helpful if we see what the Inquisitors actually do, because for the majority of the audience who aren't us, this is the first time they're seeing these guys or knowing who they are.
Jimmy has an action figure of the kid in
Maybe
the
that's what they're making.
right
they're
now.
making action figures.
Yeah, look at that. Yeah, that's him. And all you got to do is just drop him in a glass of lemonade, and you've got yourself a piece of Kenobi merch.
I was thinking it's the Master Skywalker kid. Master Skywalker, what we to do? I thought that was him.
He definitely had that look on his face.
He did have that look on his face.
He sure did. And then some people are saying the first one was Tara Sinube from the Clone Wars.
It is. That is
a lot of people are saying that. Yeah. And then but you know, in the audio descriptive track for this episode, they made it clear that Kenobi was looking at Jedi in those amber tanks. And I was not getting that vibe from looking at them, just based on their wardrobe. And I do find it funny they put the kid in the tank with the helmet.
But those could be Jedi on the run, you know. Not everybody.
Right. Jedi on the run
to go back out there wearing Jedi robes. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know why he doesn't wear his blue outfit to go on this adventure and all that stuff. You know,
I thought I saw an Imperial dignitary in one of those tanks. A guy dressed very similar to those Imperial dignitaries. And so we know that the Empire is also hunting down Force sensitives too, not just Jedi. They're hunting. Well,
that's why. That's your point. Like, it goes back to that guy, Roken, in the beginning. He was talking about his wife, right? And you know, I married this woman knowing what she was, and you know, they came and got her, and clearly she wasn't a Jedi, because if she was a Jedi, you know, he would have said to Obi-Wan, like, perhaps you know my wife, she was this, you know, this Jedi. So, you know, like, and you have to imagine, okay, if it's a married woman, it's an adult. So it's not just kids they're going after anybody who's Force sensitive, which is super cool. So those people in those tombs, you know, might not all be straight up Jedi, you know, like if they're not in the traditional robes and stuff like that, they could be like literally like this is one of those could be that guy's wife, you know what I mean? Like all that stuff. And by the way, this goes into a big problem I had with the episode. Is it's such a short episode that I really felt like they could have done 5 more minutes at that hidden base to get to know those characters, especially the guy who gets shot in the air speeder. It's not a snow speeder. We'll get into that. At the end, Wade, I think his name was, or Wayne. I think it was Wade. And he gets killed. But if we had 5 more minutes of these people where, like, you know, obviously this guy Roken knows who Kenobi is. He calls him General Kenobi, all that stuff.
Yes.
And it would have been really interesting to say, this is our group is called the Path. This is what we do. Get him the hell out of here. Like, he just wakes up in the tank and it's like, and he's like, get him out of here. Okay, I'll help you. You know what I mean? Like, it could have had 5 more minutes of Tala showing Obi-Wan around and sort of going,
Well, to me,
here's what's going on here. This
yes,
is the beginning of the rebellion.
I thought what we were going to see was essentially in a rebel style, how rebels would show you the birth of these rebel cells. You know, it's like, boom, there's that, you know, that, okay, there's another rebel cell that as they get pulled into the conflict on another level, that's what I thought we were going to see, that, you know, at some point they would, you know, I don't know, hang the rebel flag or something, you know, something that would, I mean, Talia does say, you know, I guess you are soldiers now after they lose weight.
Yeah, but that's a confusing line, which is, what are they then? You know, they seem to be like, because you get the idea, it's like where he's sort of like, you know, this is the centerpiece of the hub of whatever the operation is. So are they sort of, to your point about the rebel cells, are they sort of the middlemen who sort of joining, you know, getting these cells together, organizing them, whatever? Like there could have been something very interesting.
Well, okay, let me
the group that pulls all that together.
Yes, absolutely. But you know, if you think about the Underground Railroad, right, with you know, that was helping out the slaves, the United States, those people did not consider themselves likely soldiers. You know, soldiering was something else.
But again, some clarity would have helped that, to your point. Because you're
agree.
Right. When you really think about it, especially the third episode, it is the Underground Railroad. It's like, here are these tunnels. We've smuggled out other Jedi before. Quinlan Vos was here. All these, you know, here's the symbol on the wall.
Yeah,
all that shit.
And then they show up with helmets and airspeeder, and they're blowing people away. They looked like soldiers to me. But that again, that was the part. That was when they entered the fray, and then the death of Wade made it official. We did bring up the airspeeders, and FJ, I know you wanted to respond to some criticism you saw online, because a lot of people jumped to the conclusion that those were snow speeders. Jimmy Mack has actual evidence, canonical.
I do. I do. Well, you know, how canonical?
Jimmy, let me see if I'm right. Tell me if I'm right.
Okay. Yeah.
The snow speeders were converted air speeders to fit the terrain of Hoth, because they were falling apart.
They're all T-47s, and T-47s can be modified to fit the environment. The snow speeder was that worked out really well for the rebels, the way they were able to modify it for the Battle of Hoth. But they also modified swamp speeders, sand speeders, and sky speeders with more powerful repulsor lift engines and pressurized cabins for high altitudes. And so this is mentioned actually in dialogue from Empire Strikes Back, where they say they're not finished modifying the speeders for the cold. So this is a vehicle that can be heavily modified to fit what you want it to do, just like a lot of cars, you know, and a lot of SUVs and things. They can be modified to go faster. They can be modified to have stronger exterior, or just be a more powerful vehicle. And handle different terrain. So I think the criticism that we were seeing, FJ, was, so now all of a sudden snow speeders can fly at any altitude and hover. You know, why wouldn't they be able to? That's just what I don't understand.
Yeah. Those ships, look, when you think about Empire Strikes Back, they're relatively high off the ground in the bit where they're searching for Han and Luke, and then subsequently in the battle. You know, where I didn't have a problem, and this was sort of where the argument sort of comes from, is I don't know, for some reason I remember they were air speeders. You know, like, and I could understand the issue. This is me being really nerdy. If they went into space, like if they went into space,
right?
And
they're atmospheric vehicles,
but they're still in the atmosphere. So we don't know exactly. They just went up to the clouds and hopped into the one ship, because the other one gets shot down.
Yeah,
is like, that's why it didn't bother me from a nerdy logical point of view, in that, you know, and that, can they hover? Sure, they can hover. You know what I mean? Like, why not? The Falcon can hover. You know, why?
It's repulsor lift.
This is the thing with Star Wars. It's like, it's not real life, right? Like, you know, it's like, just chill the frig out. You know, like, it's like I understand. Look, I'm the first to admit, and this is the earlier part of the conversation, I understand there are logic gaps in the storytelling. I understand there's flaws in the execution of it. But when you start getting into this speeder does this and this, it's it's Star Wars, dude. Like, just because Pablo wrote it in a book somewhere doesn't mean, you have to stick with it. It's like, just relax. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's the canon stuff. Look, I can understand the canon stuff gives you headaches. Like, how does she like, she acts like she doesn't know him in New Hope. Like, I totally get that. Like, and hopefully I'm right and they resolve it in some way and all that stuff. But it's like, if you're going to start getting into, like, hey, these are snow speeders versus air speeders. Like, who gives a shit? Like, they'll make another toy out of it, and it's fun. It's a fun scene, and they get away. And and then you find out she let them get away. So that explains why she's not running at super top speed using the Force to stop them. She kills the one that they're not in, right? She gets the kill, and subsequently, now she's got the tracker and Lola, which I thought was kind of clever.
Yeah. I keep thinking of Layla every time I hear Lola. So I think we need a clever Rebel Force Radio listener to rewrite the lyrics of Eric Clapton's Layla to Lola.
To Lola. But, it's like, another friend of mine, a writer friend of mine, said to me today, like, he loved the absurdity of just hiding Leia in a jacket. Right? Like the absurdity of just, like, it's so ridiculous. It's Star Wars. You know what I mean? Like, Star Wars is ridiculous at times. It's fine.
Yeah. Here's where I land on this, is that if I'm being entertained, and maybe this makes me a simpleton, but if I'm being thoroughly entertained, I'm going to be a lot less apt to pick nits and worry about, the model of this armor or this ship. Now, if I'm not being entertained, if I'm bored, and I was frequently during Boba Fett, honestly, bored's not the right word, but my mind would wander during that show. My mind doesn't wander during Obi-Wan, even though I know the outcomes, and we have, folks on the chat saying, well, there's not a whole lot of suspense here. We know what happens. I'm still on the edge of my seat when I'm watching them, sneak around stormtroopers, and I'm seeing cool stuff like Obi-Wan learning how to, or, showing that trick where he makes a noise down the hallway, which he does later in episode 4 to distract the stormtroopers. Watching him, I'll tell you one thing that really jumped out at me in this episode was watching the evolution of his saber skills. Because we saw him with Vader in the last episode. He wasn't looking great. Rusty. He was looking very rusty. He was still rusty with this one, but it was getting better. And then he was starting to do those little flourishes and some of those different turns with the saber. The confidence is coming back. And we were talking earlier about, how he's going to evolve. And Jim, early on, before we even saw an episode of this show, we were saying, look, don't screw up Obi-Wan. You can show him as a broken man, but you got to have that payoff where he thaws out and becomes truly the Alec Guinness. And even though it was kind of a cute, touching scene, I thought him opening himself up to the love that Leia was showing him at the end of this episode with the hands, that was a big step into him, I think, becoming the Alec Guinness.
Good point. I mean, we have to move forward from the point where we're dealing with a Ben Kenobi who is so distraught, so isolated, hiding himself. He has to bury his lightsaber in the middle of the desert. This is the guy who said, "This saber is your life." And he was very, very strongly opinionated about that too. And so that obviously, on top of all the trauma of losing the Jedi, losing freedom in the galaxy, losing Anakin, on top of all of that, he loses his whole life as represented in that lightsaber. So the series begins, he digs up the saber. Okay? I would have been honestly disappointed if all of a sudden he was, the same old Obi-Wan Kenobi he was in the prequels. Also, keep in mind, we have to get to a point where he becomes too old for this kind of thing. So I don't, I think it's really fair that we're getting glimpses of both the prequel and original trilogy Ben Kenobi in this show because it happens right between those two episodes.
Reva's even calling him an old man. I thought that was
They do a lot of that.
Yeah.
I get
Old man.
disappointed with that. He's a year younger than me, and that disappoints me a great deal. But
you're dead on. That's a dead on analogy. That was sort of what I was talking about before about Vader feels more like Anakin Hayden than he does David Prowse Vader. And there's an evolution of that, right? So and also, like I said before, like if you start this show and he's already the wise old man sitting in the cave just waiting for Luke to turn 18 or whatever, then what do you got? What do you got for that character?
Yes,
You know
I
what mean?
agree with that.
You have nothing. You have nothing to build off of. Sorry, I'm grabbing the dog.
Yeah, no, FJ, I'm glad you brought up The Last Jedi, episode 8, because that was some of the counter argument that was coming at those that felt that that Luke was a big disappointment. Oh, you just want him to be the same as he was before, and there'd be no character growth, there'd be no character arc. But the proof's going to be in the pudding with Kenobi. But you were dead right when you said earlier about, well, the payoff has to work, and Luke's contribution to the Resistance was, I believe, too small. Now you could say, oh, well, if he hadn't saved that ship, then there would have been no Resistance. But cinematically, it just wasn't epic enough, or profoundly emotional enough. Like look at the Alec Guinness version of Obi-Wan and his sacrifice. It's very emotional. And Hamill does a great job of selling it and the disappointment. Though Carrie Fisher, looking back on it, if this guy saved her skin back when she was 9 years or 10 years old, you'd think she'd be a little bit. But she's so stoic too. I mean, she watched her whole damn planet explode, and and there she is consoling Luke. I mean, that is even.
What if Ben does something? What if Ben does something to wipe her memory with the Force or something?
I wouldn't be surprised if there's something we haven't seen.
I wouldn't be
before,
surprised.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Is there some
Maybe
open your mind to me kind of thing? Like the opposite of when they're trying to drag the memories out of her? Is there a way? It feels so manipulative though when I say it out loud. Like it feels like a violation of the character.
Obi-Wan Kenobi is not a stranger to manipulation from a certain point of view.
But by the way, to your point, to make another episode 4 reference is, this also needs to end at a certain place. And this is profit or loser kind of stuff. I've got a couple more with those, but in this case, something one of you guys brought up was, the old man in New Hope is Jimmy Smits again sends another message. That's the whole gist of New Hope is they're recruiting Obi-Wan. It's time, and this time he's ready. Obi-Wan's getting on the ship, whether Luke is coming or not. You know what I mean? Like the whole catalyst of Rogue One, New Hope, etc., is we're dragging Obi-Wan back into the battle. And I think that's really interesting. So he's got to be at a point where now he's ready to be a willing participant. When these kids are ready, we're going to do this kind of thing. And I think that's really cool.
It is, but it makes me think, how I don't know, because I'm feeling you go back to Rogue One, when they realize that the Death Star exists, it is a threat. It doesn't feel very calculated. It feels rushed. I mean, oh my God, crisis emergency calling out for Ben Kenobi. So when you say that, sort of this is the moment that they've been gearing up to, and I believe that too, going into, before all of this stuff, that it was long time coming, and finally this is the moment. And for all we knew watching episode 4 for the first time, that was almost like a secret code, for Ben Kenobi to come out of hiding. That it was that it wasn't to be taken at face value. But now we know it is our most desperate hour. We just realized that there's a super weapon that is capable of destroying entire worlds. So it is. I feel like it's more rushed than calculated. Or
but it's desperate enough where we got to bring Obi-Wan back.
10
years after what we're seeing now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they're not going to Tatooine to find Luke. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like they're not going there to recruit Luke. They're going there to recruit Obi-Wan Kenobi. It just happens the droids end up with Luke, which is the
it's almost like, hey,
history of everything ever.
Yeah, like we know he's waiting around for this kid to show up so that he can train him, but this is a far larger emergency. We need him now. We don't have time to wait for that plan that those two, Jedi set up. Because, in the earlier episode when you see, and Jim, I don't know if you took it this way, I sure did, when you see the conflict or the confrontation between Owen and Ben, and he says, when the boy's old enough, he must be trained. I think the assumption is that Obi-Wan sees himself, he's the one that's going to be training him.
Yes. Unless, he and Yoda had some deal, come on in and bring him over. And I'm like you. I always assumed it would be Ben training Luke. No question about it. And he starts to. I mean, as soon as he gets the first opportunity, he starts to. So, that's I'm a little distracted because somebody came up with a great theory here on the chat.
Who was it?
I want to find the name before I repeat it. But this person said, it is Connor Ferguson. Connor says he has great theory on Reva. What happened here? Did I freeze up? Is everything frozen?
No, you're there.
What's going on here? Oh, no, I'm sorry. Forget that happened. His theory is Reva is the wife of O'Shea Jackson Jr.'s character. And she was the one who was taken by the Inquisitors. So that would eliminate the whole it's Reva at the beginning, which is kind of hard to push that aside.
The problem with that is if they're married, I don't know how old the Reva actress is. And by the way, this is the same, somebody else brought that up to me today earlier. I'm convinced his wife is one of the people encased in the tombs. But anyway,
Reva,
it wouldn't make sense because Reva talks about how she lost all her stuff as a kid. I had a droid as a kid. I had this as a kid. It's constant references to childhood. She wouldn't sit there and be like, I lost my husband, I lost my family. Like that doesn't come up. It's a good theory, and I'm not, it just doesn't feel like it makes sense in terms of that's almost too convenient, which is, why they cut like Lando's daughter being Lando's daughter in Rise of Skywalker. You know what I mean? Like it's just,
right.
The coincidence has become too much. It's a good theory, but it would have been a better theory if it had teed up in her previous scenes stuff about her adulthood versus her childhood.
Yeah, they freeze when Kenobi's walking through the tomb. They freeze on a woman, like a long-haired lady who, it's almost Harry Potter like she's or what the statues at Pompeii. Like they've got a look of horror on their face, as they're struck, and they freeze on her enough to where I had the same thought, FJ, that maybe that was his wife. What was the fella's name? Roken. Yeah, O'Shea Jackson Jr., son of Ice Cube.
Yeah, he's a really good actor. And that again, that was my biggest problem with this episode is I wanted more of that little corner of the rebellion and him and what he does because he's interesting, etc. And it's really good at the end where he sort of comes out like, "Where's Wade?" And there's some emotional weight to it that I think they could have had more of.
Something that didn't play well for me was, while we're picking nits, I didn't think, and maybe this wasn't the plan anyway, but I didn't think that Reva was doing a really good job trying to pull Leia to her side. She seemed menacing the whole way through, so there was no switch. There were a couple of moments where Leia really got under her skin. She finally puts her in the torture chamber, but I also don't think there was any real buildup. Like she was being nasty to Leia, I feel like, for the most part, the whole time. So I thought that didn't quite land.
that's what I'm worried about. If she turns good, it was like, then why did you do all this, to this kid, and you're going to put her in the torture chamber and all this nonsense, right? So,
Yeah.
It's one of those things where it's like, choose one way. She's either bad with a chance of redemption, or she's just a Sith, a
Right.
Inquisitor.
Mean.
You know what I mean? Like that's it. And I personally would prefer her being straight up bad guy, irredeemable throughout the whole thing. Just because we've had too much of the bad guy redemption thing. Like we're going through this with Boba Fett right now, where it's like, he was the biggest bad guy, scariest bad guy ever, and now he wants to make friends and have a gang and family and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Look, I know we're short on time. I just want to give you my one.
I'm putting the number up just for those. 70886.
I saw the number. I thought I was screwing you guys.
No, not at all. No, if you want to hang out, I know that there's folks that are calling in that would love to ask you a question if you have the time.
Yeah, I can stay for a little.
Oh, okay.
Let me throw this.
But the number to call here, real quick, is 708-866-1737. 708-866-1737. Give us a call. We'd really like to. I mean, this has expanded to a discussion about the series so far, but we really would like to talk a little bit more about this particular episode. And you know what? I realize, guys, I did something terribly wrong, and I hope that the listeners out there forgive me. This is a huge mistake in the annals of RFR After Shows. I did not give the tale of the tape. And so we are talking about Obi-Wan Kenobi, Episode 4, directed by Deborah Chow, written by Joby Harold and Hannah Friedman, and original stream date, in this case, June 8th, 2022. So we're going to make it official right there, the tale of the tape. So, FJ, you had a few more theories while the calls start to fill up, and our call screener Tyler is ready for them.
Is Liam Neeson's going to show up at the end?
Okay.
They just teed up too much, and I think it's going to pay off. As I've mentioned many times on here, my biggest gripe with Revenge of the Sith was Lucas's last-minute cut of the Qui-Gon voiceover with Yoda, which made it into the books, which made it into the comic, all that stuff. And because to me, it was the ultimate payoff of the Force Ghosts and the Living Force and all that stuff. So I think what's going to happen is, especially I think this scene at the end of this episode where he's holding Leia's hand, is I think he's starting to find some sort of inner peace and some sort of reclaiming his mission and who he is. And I think that's going to connect him to Qui-Gon. And then when they at the end, I'd love to see a Qui-Gon ghost show up, but I think you're going to see in the final battle with Vader, you're going to hear Qui-Gon's voice like you heard Ben Kenobi's voice to Luke in New Hope, right after he died. I think you'll start to hear Qui-Gon because he's reconnecting with the Force. He's rediscovering how to use his powers and all that stuff. So I think the big payoff is now he's going to start training about the Living Force with Qui-Gon, and that pays off how he dies in New Hope.
Aha. They only got 2 episodes left, guys. I hope they can fit this all in. I know that there's, hope that there might be another season, but I don't. Now, Jimmy, you mentioned something. I think it was you that mentioned that they may have made some last-minute changes to the end of this series.
It's just a rumor. That's just a rumor going on the internet. I don't know. I mean, television is a different kind of beast where obviously revisions can be made because it's released on a weekly basis. What do you think about that rumor, FJ? I really don't put too much stock in it, but it's possible.
Anything's possible, but who the hell knows?
I mean,
wouldn't that indicate like studio interference or something? I mean,
well, look, all I know is this. All I know is there was a different pathway for this show originally. And I'm 90% certain, I'm talking a little bit out of school with some knowledge of this, is Vader wasn't the original idea for this. And it was supposed to be Darth Maul.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's the same story. I don't know how they incorporated it, whatever. But, I do know Favreau and Filoni got involved and sort of, or gave input, etc. And that led to the Vader and sort of the Inquisitors. I'm not sure what sort of carried over and stuff like that. But, in those rewrites, it became a Vader thing. That's all I know.
Mm-hmm. All right.
But I don't think there's studio interference. I think there's,
do they have enough time? 2 more episodes? Now, there's been some variation in the runtime. This episode was one of the, I think, the shortest so far. like
Yeah,
38
it
minutes
was.
or something like that.
Right.
It was like 32 minutes. It was really
Yeah.
super short. And that, again, I'm saying this for like the fourth or fifth time, is you could have easily had 5 extra minutes of the what are they, the path, that whole gang, and who they are and what they're doing, and have that inspire Obi-Wan, like be part of his character arc, that he,
Yeah.
he's discovering there's people out there who are fighting and he's got to fight again. I think
Since you
that's
bring
really
up the
important.
path, that's one reason why I think they may opt to erase Leia's memory. That could be a good reason to do it, is that she has knowledge of the path and maybe they don't want to put her at risk or what have you. So
She has knowledge, but she doesn't know where they are. Or she does know where they are.
No.
That's why Reva's trying to get out of her. But it's tricky. It's tricky.
It is. So pretty much everyone that knows that Leia knows has to die, and have not given that information over to Vader, because otherwise this would hang over her head.
Here's another
forever.
profit or loser thing is, I think whatever the final fight with Obi-Wan and Vader is, I think there's a possibility that fight ends with the idea of Vader thinking Obi-Wan's dead. Like something happens where
a reversal.
like Vader thinks like something, like he thinks he won that battle and Obi-Wan.
Okay. I'm glad you brought that up,
rid of him.
because this is something that I've been wanting to talk about. Is something has to happen in order for Obi-Wan Kenobi to feel confident enough to walk around Tatooine, Mos Eisley, with his lightsaber hanging from his belt, wearing full-on Jedi robes. But there has to get to a point where either the Jedi are no longer being hunted, or hunt the Jedi all you want. I'm a badass and I can take care of myself, and I'm not afraid of any of these Inquisitors. It's got to be one of those things.
I think I do agree, because and again, I think this is where they are thinking. It's like, hey, we start him off in this cave and he's going to end up in his little hut that we see in New Hope, and he's got the lightsaber, it's not buried anymore clearly, and all that stuff, you know what I mean? So it's like he's got both lightsabers, and so he's got to go get the other one if he didn't hang on to it. So that's my point, is where he's got to be presumed dead, where he could just go back there and sort of live casually as old man Ben Kenobi, the crazy hermit.
Yes.
I think that's going to play into this. And to your point, they only got 2 more episodes. They got to do this, pretty sharply. But on the flip side, like, to me now, I know they did this with the idea of it be a self-contained thing and not worried about a second season. But now it at least feels like you could do another season of this sort of chase for him or whatever.
Yeah.
But I don't think they're thinking that.
Yeah, I know some people are saying, well, can we spend a little time with Luke Skywalker? And I understand that. But I also think, because we know a lot of Luke's journey, and not that I don't want to see more Luke, but I think having a little bit of balance here to show, well, there was this other twin that was also showing some really, great abilities, and she has a story to tell as well. Some super chats here I want to share. Garrett Hills says, listening at work as usual, thought we would get some Book of Boba Fett style flashbacks of Clone Wars and get Qui-Gon. Also, are we assuming Lola was on Leia while she was in the torture chair? Thanks again. So Garrett, thanks for the super chat. Appreciate it, buddy. I did too. I thought that, first of all, when Kenobi was he was on the gurney, they were taking him and he was kind of hallucinating. I thought he was going to flash back to a Clone Wars battle then and there and look up and see Anakin's face and Ahsoka's face. That didn't happen. And then the Bacta, I thought, okay, well, they've already established this as a device for, deep meditation or contemplation or whatever. And that didn't happen either. So I'm starting to think we're not getting Clone Wars flashbacks yet in this series.
No, I'm starting to lean there too. Yeah, we might. Yeah, we might.
I don't know. Because I literally thought he'd rescued Leia in 2 episodes and that would be it. I didn't know it was going to be the crux of the whole show. So
right.
It would have been a great use of Hayden. I just don't know how they're going to do that. I'm just hoping there's like a fun moment. They've done this in the comic books where like, Obi-Wan hits the Vader helmet with the lightsaber and it cracks open and you see Hayden's face and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Like as sort of in their final battle and all that stuff.
And I still predict that Kenobi will win that battle at the end of this series.
Well, I think he wins it, but like he wins it in a way where it's like he either sacrificed himself or like I said, it appears to be.
I see, yeah.
That he dies.
Yeah. And I'm looking at this comment. After this, by the way, I do have to split after this
all right.
comment.
Four Midwest Guys comes in. What about when Leia first meets Luke, and after Luke tells her he's with Ben Kenobi and Leia's excited to go with Luke, doesn't that suggest she knows Kenobi? Yeah, it absolutely does. And I thought the way because he says, I've got the droid, I'm here with Ben Kenobi. She goes, Ben Kenobi?
Right.
Wouldn't she be, if he would have said Obi-Wan Kenobi, wouldn't she have been expecting that? She sent the transmission out for him. So that's why I thought they were going to play off this Ben versus Obi-Wan.
I think they can still do it. I really do think they can do it. Like she could say, well, who's Obi-Wan? Oh, that's my brother.
Yeah.
It'd be simple. And again, I mean, to the whoever just sent that in, like that's a good point. Is like you could easily craft this in a way where her reaction to Ben Kenobi versus Obi-Wan Kenobi is two different things. That she has this her excitement comes from that emotional attachment of this traumatic adventure she's gone on with him.
Yes. All right. Before we let you go, FJ.
FJ DeSanto. Prophet or loser.
I still love that you guys made that.
I've recorded 5 of these. Number 1, Obi versus Ben. They will deal with the whole Obi-Wan Kenobi versus Ben Kenobi and whether or not Leia recognizes both names or just one of the names. That they'll deal with that. You're not saying how, but you're going on record to say they'll resolve that. They will also confirm Reva as the kid in one of the younglings in the beginning of the first episode. You're also saying you didn't want this to necessarily happen, but you do think that Reva is going to turn to the good side or she'll be redeemed in some way. Also claiming that Liam Neeson will show up, but he'll show up at the end, and it'll be sort of I
think the voice first, and then like the last moment, like you imagine he's in the new hut, and the Force Ghost appears, and you sort of pan out,
and that's
he's
the
end.
He's
going to learn how to become a Force Ghost.
Yeah, I think we'll get voice only. I'd be surprised if Spirit showed up.
It'd be fun. I'll take either or.
I think Kenobi is the first Jedi Spirit to truly break through, and Qui-Gon he didn't complete his training enough to be able to do that. But what do I know? Sometimes I think it's the Force user who is conjuring up the visions and the images of ghosts and things like that, more than the actual
in
ghost
Revenge of the
itself.
Sith, it's set up. It's totally set up at the end of Revenge of the Sith, where it's like more training for you he has. So you can imagine that step happens, and especially because Qui-Gon shows up in Clone Wars as a ghost. There's a precedent for, even though that's whatever the hell he shows up in. Was it Rebels?
Yeah, because no, it's in
the Clone Wars.
It's in Clone Wars, and it's explained. He says the only reason he's able to appear is because that Mortis is an amplifier of the Force.
That's right.
And however, I always thought that a Jedi's training, or a Force user's, not training, that's not the right word, but understanding of the Force doesn't end with death. If they're able to hold on, that they would still continue to progress their understanding and their ability to use the Force. So, maybe at the end of Revenge of the Sith, because I'm with Jim, I was like, well, at best, all Lucas was ever going to do was you were going to hear the voice. You weren't going to see Qui-Gon. But maybe at this point, he's progressed to that, to be able to.
Well, that's right. It would be like a step, like a step. The next step is
right.
That. Sorry, Jimmy.
FJ, what do you think is up with Luke? Are we going to get any more Luke? I have a theory. or a prediction.
I think we're gonna get Luke in Ahsoka in some way.
Oh, I see. Oh no, I mean young Luke, like
young Luke,
Kenobi.
young Luke will come back. Yeah,
I think for sure.
I don't know if
because
it's
we haven't seen
still
Bonnie
like
Peace
he's
yet.
keeping a distance or whatever. But I feel like he'll, there'll be some moment where he gets the toy ship, the Skyhopper.
Yeah, oh yes, of course, that has to pay off. And we haven't seen Bonnie Peace yet, so we know we're going to be returning to the homestead.
Yeah.
I predict Reva is going to somehow attempt to kill young Luke. She's going to discover he is Vader's son, and she's going to try to hurt him or kidnap him or kill him somehow.
Wow, that's bold.
That's your prophet.
Yeah,
that's
that's a big
real
one.
bold. Hey, why not? Lastly, the final fight ends with Vader thinking Obi-Wan Kenobi is dead. Dead.
Yeah, I think that stops the search for him. That gives him the comfort of being on Tatooine.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, this has been a pleasure. Thank you very much. Really
Thanks,
appreciate it.
I'm sorry I can't do the calls. So this ends up on YouTube. If people put stuff in the comments, I'll scroll it and make some wise ass shit.
All right.
Well, they're commenting.
All right.
They are commenting.
All right, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good to see you all.
Good to see you, buddy. Take care.
Cheers.
Cheers. Bye-bye. All right. 708-866-1737. Got a couple more super chats here. Thanks, guys. Very generous. This is Classic Donut. Says, I underestimated you, Vader, while choking Reva. Seriously? That's it? RFR, your thoughts? I thought it was a pretty big switch. It was a very fast switch. It was like, is Vader really that easily impressed? She put a tracker on them. Maybe. I don't know. I'll be honest. It stuck out to me. I didn't like it. I didn't love that. I thought he was, they want to give him this big badass entry, which is cool. And then he calms down real fast. Oh, you didn't tell me you had a tracker. Okay, that's fine then.
Yeah, that was a left turn. Yeah, I can't really say anything that would sort of justify him acting that way, really.
Yeah, then he's mental, obviously.
Yeah, he's a little nuts.
Right.
He seemed to be really taken with the fact she said Kenobi is all that matters.
Yes.
So even like their own hangout can get destroyed and she doesn't care. She is solely locked, focused on this thing. And I think that's what separates her from the other Inquisitors. They're all worried that their clubhouse got trashed. And she's like, that doesn't matter. We got to get Kenobi.
The Inquisitorium got trashed. And that's Fifth Brother's all bent out of shape about that.
Right.
He's like, my pad, man.
And I think
care.
Vader takes note of that. And appreciates Reva's singular focus on getting this job done because she understands the priority Kenobi is in Vader's life. Maybe the other Inquisitors don't get that.
Yeah, right. 4 more Midwest guys come back, says, I think it would be cool if Ben puts his hand on Leia's head and uses the Force to help her remember Padme, like Luke did with Grogu. Ooh.
Right, that's a good one. That's real good.
Awesome.
Like maybe that's the exchange for wiping her memory of these events. He says, well, I'll give you some experience with your mother you can tap into mentally.
You just gave me goosebumps because that is a really cool idea. So here, she's growing very fond and very attached to Ben, and he's going to level with her and tell her that for her own safety, he has to do this so she won't remember him, and for her own good, for her own safety. And as the parting gift, but I can help you remember someone else. And he puts the vision of Padme. Oh, I love that theory. That is cool. That's very cool. All right, here's what we got. David says, can FJ come back for every Kenobi after show? This is a great discussion. Well, thanks. We're glad you enjoyed it. He's a busy guy. But he'll be back here on RFR. Super chat from Ryan, just sending us a couple bucks. Thanks, Ryan. Ryan never asks for anything. He's one of those guys. He's like, I'm just going to tip these guys. Let's go to the phones. We have first-time caller Curtis from Texas joining us. He's also a Patreon. Please, you Patreons out there, make sure you let Tyler know that you are one, and we'll get you to the top of the list Hello, Curtis. Hello, Curtis.
Hello.
You got to
hello.
unmute. There we are.
Hey,
Curtis,
Chut,
go
Chut.
ahead. Chut, man. What'd you think of this episode of Kenobi?
Hey, guys. I'm loving it. I'm just blown away. I'm seeing Obi-Wan Kenobi. It's what a great time to be a fan. I'm smiling. I'm digging it. But when I'm thinking back on it, man, I got some questions. I don't get it. The why didn't Vader just put out the fire, or why didn't he just jump over the fire? Why is
I'm going to answer the jump question. Hold on, Curtis, because this has been something that's been bugging me. Because I know all you comic book readers and you're watching Darth Vader doing backflips and all kinds of wacky stuff, and he's jumping, The guy probably weighs a good 400 or 500 pounds, with all of that gear. I don't think that he's moving. He's not real spry. So could he have put the fire out? Maybe. But I don't see him doing any kind of, crazy Jedi acrobatics. And I'm not picking on you, dude. I'm just saying because I saw that before. And
I will admit I played every Star Wars game there's ever been, and I just felt like maybe Double X would have done the trick. XX.
Get him in a combo.
I'll tell you. I can tell you exactly why he didn't jump over the fire. I can tell you exactly why he didn't do that. Is because the writers wanted Ben Kenobi to escape. And that's why.
Yeah.
That is exactly why. Sometimes you just have to go with the flow of the story. And
ultimately, Jimmy, that's the answer to all this, right?
What's that?
No, ultimately, Jimmy, that's the answer to all this, right? I mean, what? I was watching the scene with Vader, you guys were just talking about it. And I love how you're, bringing that up with Vader walking in. But, the scene right before that, where Reva, tries to stop them, but yet she planted a dark side Lola. Why did you try to stop them then? What if those airspeeders had not shown up? Then what was your plan? Some of this, you can't think too much into it. But
okay, Curtis, I'm going to meet you halfway on this one because I felt very similarly. She shouldn't have said, "I let them go." What she should have said is something more like, "I have a plan. I had a plan." I like to think that the tracker on Lola was a contingency. It was a what if. It was an insurance policy.
Yeah.
Even if this kid does get away,
I like that.
Yeah. So, but you're right. In terms of the dialogue, she's, making it sound like she had this plan from the beginning, and I let them go. I don't know.
Well, here's the thing. It kind of mirrors what Vader does in A New Hope, doesn't it? He lets the Falcon escape from the Death Star. He lets that happen because they put a tracker on the Falcon.
Ooh, that's a good one.
And so maybe this is where he got the idea. But I mean, this is something that's going on. He had an ulterior motive. I think Reva has an ulterior motive. She wants to be taken to these safe houses where the path is happening. And that's one of her goals. And so Leia will, and also catching Kenobi, obviously, So I'm just saying, Vader did the same thing that the Inquisitor did. He did the same thing.
Yeah.
So
that's a really good point. And perhaps that would have played better if we would have realized, or if they'd have been more explicit about how valuable knowing where this path is and all that really was, because it really wasn't until this episode. Yeah, we do as a result of this episode, but up to that point, it wasn't like, where is the hidden rebel base, where you spend the entire episode film, stressing out over, where it is. So that's what they're trying to find. Whereas this is Kenobi. Oh, and now I'm real mad because of the path. It was just,
they do admit that they thought it was a lie when they intercepted chatter about that. They thought it was a lie, and now they know it's real. So it suddenly rose up on that priority list in this episode.
Yeah. Curtis, thanks for the call, man. That was a good one. Some really good thoughts there. We've got Brad from Chicago. Brad's on the line. Welcome to Rebel Force Radio. or I should say, welcome back. Hey, Brad.
Chut, how's it going?
Chut. All right, man. What's on your mind?
Well, I'm really loving the show so far. I think and I'm someone who's been pretty critical of the way Disney's taken the franchise the last couple of years. So it's been pretty exciting to see. Like, I'm loving the action from this week in specific, seeing Obi-Wan with the lightsaber again. And I'm just really, like, what's on my mind is, where does it go next? That's, when a story grips me like this, like I think you were saying earlier, Jason, I think it's just such a cool thing to think about. And I was just wondering, where do you guys think it's going to go next? Because I think there's a good chance we see someone like maybe Quinlan next week, because they've mentioned him before. I don't know. Just want to hear you guys' thoughts.
Where is it going? Well, thanks for the call. Well, I think there's some things that are real obvious. It's leading up to a third and final. Well, I shouldn't say final. The penultimate rematch between Vader and Kenobi. So they definitely need to get there. Where does it happen? Where are they headed, by the way? Are they at the end of this episode?
Oh, I think clearly back to Alderaan to deliver Leia.
Yeah, right.
But they're not explicit about that.
Right. We just have to assume that they're not taking any detours, that they're going straight to Alderaan. Mm-hmm. I know, some of the broad strokes, but I'm not going to say anything profound here, because I think they've got to resolve Reva. They've got to get Vader and Kenobi fighting again. We got to see Qui-Gon show up, and we got to see Ben fully emerge as, the guy that we meet in A New Hope. So in terms of where it's going, how they get there, I don't really know. They've kept me guessing. They really have. I haven't found this story to be predictable, really.
No, I just with this episode alone, this whole episode, and I'm not saying I want this episode to be avoided, but this episode could have been avoided if they just ended episode 3 sort of on a different, in a different way, with the tracker being placed on the ship, with Leia not getting kidnapped for a second time. I mean, all this stuff kind of, when the show starts repeating itself, and I say this for any show, any movie, anything, that it's like, okay, we already did that. Now we're doing it again. Well, why did we do it again? There has to be a reason for it. And I'm struggling finding the reasons for why we did it again. Why there was a second mission to rescue a kidnapped Leia. Is it solely just to, I can't even think. I can't even think of anything that couldn't have happened in the last episode.
Right.
Without this one.
She
but I mean, she
could have had similar force powers on display in another circumstance. So all the things that are revealed through the interrogation, you're absolutely right, Jim. They could have been handled a different way and given us a fresher story twist rather than just another rescue mission.
Or the interrogation and all that stuff should have happened in the initial kidnapping.
Right.
But I mean, that all happened. They rescued her and then they lost her again. And so it's just the repetition of it. I did like the interrogation scene a lot. The kid, to me, is really portraying a consistent Leia character.
I agree.
This is exactly the Leia. I mean, I think she's very consistent with what we know of Leia, and I think the kid's a pretty good actor too.
I do too.
I've seen some people crapping on her online, and I think it's just solely because the kid's a kid. But we've seen bad child actors in Star Wars in the past, and I'm not putting Vivian in that category. No way.
No, I think that she pivots.
She was very good.
I agree, Jim. I think she pivots between sassy and smartass and contrite and scared and those other sides of her, which I was really glad. I didn't want to see her tortured, obviously, but I was really glad that they built in some moments where we could see that vulnerable side to her, because I was worried that she was just becoming all precocious. But she does, as an actress, have, I think, a great ability to flip back and forth and for me, make you care very deeply about her. yeah, I couldn't agree more there. Chris from Pensacola is there. He is. Here he is. Hey, Chris from Pensacola, how you doing?
What's up, guys? How's it going?
Oh, going all right.
Well, the show was awesome tonight. I mean, I went back and watched it twice.
Thanks, man. We try really hard, but what did you think about Kenobi?
Oh, well.
You were talking. I thought you were talking about Rebel Force Radio's after show. You were talking about Kenobi. I see. Okay.
Yeah, I was talking about Kenobi, but you guys are always good. You know that. You guys should be. You guys should just do this all more often.
That's what I keep telling Swank. All right, go on.
But
what'd you think of the episode?
But I really loved the episode altogether, and you guys kind of touched it with FJ, talking about. I think we saw the birth of the Rebel Alliance tonight when Tala said, "You guys are now soldiers." And we started to see the birth of the Rebel Alliance. Now Leia has seen a side of the Empire that she can't get along, that she can't get with. So she's going to go to her father and tell her, "This is what I've seen. This is not the side of the Empire you need to side with." And you're going to start seeing the wheels move toward the Rebel Alliance beginning to kind of ramp up.
Yeah, I think it was a big moment for. I wouldn't go so far as to say this was the moment that the rebellion was born. We've talked about this, throughout the years, and seeing shows like Clone Wars, like Rebels. In fact, I think we sort of proclaimed Saw Gerrera as the OG rebel, like he was, the first guy to really declare. In fact, he was declaring independence from the Republic. I mean, how long ago? During the Clone Wars. So he didn't want to be. He didn't want to serve under any masters. Saw. The other thing that I want to mention is with respect to the. I just lost my train of thought with the Empire. With the Empire. How long have I been doing this? With the rebellion. Oh, this is what it was. These shows like to lead into the next show, right? So Mandalorian led into Book of Boba Fett, and then Book of Boba Fett's leading into more Mandalorian. I think that Tala, who's showing near superhuman strength as she's able to take out anybody and anything in her path. My son would say maybe a little OP. A little overpowered. But anyway, I think she is going to lead us right into Andor. I think this is a character that will show up. She is a spy. She appears to be a very successful and good spy. And I think she's going to be that connective tissue. And who knows, perhaps Kenobi himself will have an appearance in the Andor series in the same way that Boba Fett had an appearance in, or Mando had an appearance in the Book of Boba Fett, etc. But I just kept thinking, why are we spending so much time with this Tala? Why are we spending so much time? I kept waiting for her to die. Not that I wanted her to die, don't get me wrong, but I just kept waiting. Like, okay, she's the sacrificial lamb. She's the red shirt. And it didn't happen. And then all of a sudden she's taking out 2 stormtroopers, with her bare hands. And I thought, okay, all right. We're supposed to notice her for a reason. And that could be Andor. But.
Well, she is a trained Imperial officer as well. So keep that in mind. She did go through
that's
the
true.
Imperial Academy and all of that. So.
That's true. Curtis, thanks for the call, buddy. Those were some good thoughts. We got Eric from Phoenix. Hey, buddy. He sends us some love here. He says, guys, joined late and have to run. Crazy. This is the episode people are complaining about, and it's my favorite episode of the season. So many callbacks to Obi-Wan Kenobi on the Death Star. Have fun. Thanks, Eric. Appreciate it. Yeah, there were a lot of those. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I thought the broken glass moment with the water filling up that corridor, I thought that whole sequence was super cool. And what was nice about that is you did start to see Ben getting some of his Jedi mojo back.
Yeah.
And most notably when he is able to deflect all of those blaster bolts, he takes down a bunch of stormtroopers, and he does that little twirl with the saber.
Yes.
That he's so well known for. He's starting, and it just indicates he's starting to get that mojo back.
Those
And
are the
it's
kinds
great.
of details, man. When look, we've had lots of criticism here tonight. It hasn't been all praise, but it's those little details that when I caution people to think, look, you can disagree with how things are done, how well things are done, but none of this stuff is an accident. This stuff, they think very deeply about this stuff. There may be limitations, but when you see those little details in there, I think it's really foolish to think that this is all just, sloppy and lazy and circumstance and all that. Let's see, we have any more? Oh, yeah, we got Patreon here. Here's our old buddy, John Lowe. Hello, John. Nice to hear from you, Patreon member. Wait a minute. There he comes. Hello, John.
Chut,
Chut, chut, buddy. How are you?
Good. First of all, it was great seeing y'all at ICC Con. That was such a great con.
Yes. It was.
But just so awesome. But one of the things I'm really falling in love with is Tala. I think is such a well-written and well-acted character. I caught myself rooting for her not to die tonight. Okay. And that's passion when you love a character this quickly. That's great writing and acting.
What is it about her what about her? What exactly about her is it that you find yourself responding to? What Star Wars itch is?
Well, I'm a sucker for a female British accent to begin with.
I see where this is going.
I just the way it's written and acted is very genuine. It comes from it kind of takes me back to the original trilogy. We didn't see female Imperial officers, but it's done. And I loved the nods to A New Hope in this one with the comlink sitting there with the close up. It reminds you, and Vader, y'all mentioned it earlier. Where did he get the idea to track the Falcon? Well, Reva gave it to him.
Yeah.
So just love all the nods. They're not simply fan service. Actually, just subtle nods that make you go, that's Star Wars.
Yeah, man. Thank you. Your cell is a little fuzzy, little difficult to hear, but I think we got most of it. And good to see you at ICC Con as well. And yeah, okay. So hey, we got to vote for Tala. She's not hitting me quite the way she's hitting John. But I'll go with it. But I do think she's got a larger role to play.
She has very Imperial cheekbones, and that's a good feature for any Imperial officer. Nice high cheekbones.
Yes, she does. John says, as someone who didn't think I'd see any more Star Wars after 1983, I'm grateful for all of these shows. There you go, John.
Hallelujah.
That's a good attitude.
Some people don't remember those times. I certainly do.
Right.
I certainly do. And what's nice too is we're getting a ton of Star Wars, but the desperation factor has been removed from it all because we know there'll be more next week. If we didn't care for this episode, there'll be more next week, or there'll be another series later this year, or an animated series, or an upcoming film from Taika Waititi. We got a lot on our plate right now. So the desperation of it all, where it's like they have to provide me with everything that fulfills me as a Star Wars fan right now.
Yes.
Well, we don't have to have that desperation anymore because it'll play out over a long period of time, and we'll just be overwhelmed with content more than I could have possibly ever dreamed of 10 years ago. I mean, even not even going all the way back to the original generation era. It's something that I personally am not taking for granted. And I can tell you that as Monday turns into Tuesday, I start really, really getting excited. And I'm going to be able to sit down and watch fresh Star Wars. And then when it's happening, when I'm finally this morning I took a shower. I remember standing in the shower going, oh, it's just a few more minutes. Still new Star Wars. This is awesome. And then when I sit there while it's happening, I go, wow, I'm watching new Star Wars right now. See, that I don't take that for granted at all. As an original trilogy, original generation fan who went 3 years between movies, then 16 years between trilogies, then another 10 years between trilogies. Now we're getting it all, man. We are getting it all, and it's great.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I think it also is, you know, it's a generational thing. I mean, yes, it's Star Wars fits into this really well, but it's just back when there was only 4 or 5 channels on the TV to watch. I mean, I don't want to sound like the old, get off my lawn old man, but I mean, you guys don't know how good you have it with this constant stream of entertainment, man. We got, Blake from Missouri on the line here. Hello, Blake.
Chut there.
Chut there. How you doing, buddy?
Good.
Good. What'd you think of this episode?
I really liked it.
Yeah? What was your favorite part?
Kind of whenever they're in the hallway and then he uses the force and then it makes that sound just like how it is in A New Hope.
Yeah. Yeah, there's sort of that rumble.
Because it's a callback to A New Hope.
Yes, it is a callback to A New Hope.
Good job. Good ears.
Mm-hmm.
Good ears.
What did you think about that tomb with all the Jedi inside?
That's what I called in to talk about. My 2 different theories about that.
Okay. Lay them on us. 2 theories. Will make you profit
so one
or
of my
loser.
theories. All right, one of my theories is that it could be like a cloning chamber, like Snoke, to where there were a bunch of different, and then they could try to be cloning all the Jedi this way, and then try to make them Sith to have more people hunt down the rest of the Jedi.
Right.
So they can take.
Interesting.
That's where they get their Inquisitors from.
Yeah, it's it's sort of the warehouse for future Inquisitors. That's
what I was thinking.
Yeah, dude, that is a great theory. I like that. I was thinking the cloning thing too and all of that, but your idea of them and maybe that's where Reva came from. Maybe she was thawed out of that amber and was at one point she was frozen in that goo and they freed her from it and then raised her as an Inquisitor. It's a form of stasis or something. I love it. Hey, Blake, we only have 2 more episodes to go. What's the one big thing you'd want to see before this show wraps up? What's on your list?
I want to see a big. I mean, Star Wars probably ain't gonna do it. They're probably gonna wait for like another season or something. But I want to see like a big, good fight, Obi-Wan versus Vader. I want to see like them like fully dueling it out. Kind of like the last episode, but like more intense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it.
I mean, the duel of the fates and Mustafar and all that's tough stuff to. That's a tough second act to follow. Now I'm like you guys though. I want to see the big epic.
Yeah.
I want to see it play out dramatically.
Yeah.
Their first showdown was a little bit more of a brutal beatdown. It wasn't really any back and forth going on there. There was no back. It was very one-sided, all Vader.
Mm-hmm.
But we need to see that. We need to see Ben get his Jedi mojo back. And I think we're going to see it in the second duel of Vader. And it's going to happen this season.
I think he's going to surprise Vader. I think Vader's going to walk into that next showdown thinking that, he's going to push this old man over again. And it's not going to work out quite so well. Speaking of tough acts to follow, Blake is a tough act to follow. Thanks again, Blake, for the call. Really good thoughts, dude. We've got, but James, first time caller, he is going to try to follow up Blake. Hello, James.
Hey, yes, it was pretty hard to follow up Blake because I was calling about my theory that the Inquisitors were made from the people in the amber-like goo. That's how an Inquisitor was made, but I think Blake beat me to it.
Blake beat you to it, man. So what do you expound on the theory though? Are they getting them out of there and then they're sort of conditioning them to be Inquisitors? Are they clones? What are they?
I would say maybe kind of like in Lord of the Rings, they make the Uruk-hai, isn't it like the dead elves? They kind of bring them up out of the ground and reanimate them. Isn't that, I may be wrong on that, but something like that.
Something like
they're
that.
dead. and
right.
kind of do some sort of Sith thing to make them kind of evil.
Sith magic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of Lord of the Rings. Thanks, man. Thanks for calling. Sorry that Blake beat you to it, but these kids, these young kids.
These crazy kids.
Rich Rendell with a super chat. Thanks, Rich. Says, I want this kid Blake to be the guest for next episode. Yeah, I think Blake could do his own podcast. Breaking this stuff down. Well, we got time for one more call here. Let's go to Mattuine from Tennessee. Mattuine, you're going to bring us home here tonight.
Chud, y'all, how's it going?
Good, buddy.
Hey, man, tell me if I'm just reading too much into this, but I was thinking after today's episode, seems like maybe this is intentional. Maybe it's just the way Star Wars is. There's always common themes across episodes, but there's 6 episodes of Kenobi, and there's 6 original. Well, I say original. Let's just use the prequels and original trilogy.
Okay.
But I noticed some commonalities, one for every episode and chapter. Like chapter 1, there's a princess that needs help. A Jedi is recruited to help her. Okay. That would be Phantom Menace. Clone Wars, there's a chase through seedy, neon, nighttime city underworld. There's chases on the streets involving bounty hunters. You get to see a clone trooper for the first time, just like in the Clone Wars.
Okay.
We didn't see clone troopers until episode 2. Chapter 3, we see Mustafar for the first time. And then Revenge of the Sith, we see Mustafar, and we also see the first time Vader, not Anakin, but Vader and Kenobi fight in Revenge of the Sith, and it's the first time in this series that they fight. And then, of course, this one is the most obvious.
Right.
Leia is on an Imperial base getting interrogated. Obi-Wan sneaking around the Imperial base trying to help rescue her. And then at the end, we finally see, the first time we see a rebel base, just like episode 4, the original with Yavin.
All right.
So
well, do the math. Where does this lead? What are we going to get for 5 and 6?
Yeah, that's my question to you guys is what kind of common occurrence? What were sort of the big themes of episodes 5 and 6 of the original trilogy that they could mirror?
Luke gets trained by Yoda in
Yeah.
Empire Strikes Back. So maybe the next episode will be the episode where Ben breaks through and is able to communicate with Qui-Gon Jinn, and he starts training Ben. Maybe that could be what happens, or maybe Ben loses his hand. I don't know. I mean, he could, right?
Maybe there's a snow planet. I think they have snow caps on Alderaan,
Snow planet. Okay. Swamp planet, a city in the clouds, Imperial walkers. We had snow speeders in this episode, so that crosses them out. Maybe an appearance from 21B. Who knows?
No, it's a cool theory. I like it. Now, I wouldn't say that the I think you're taking some liberties there with the the neon setting of the I don't think that was really the crux of episode 2, but I know when you're trying to make this stuff fit together, Curtis
Hey, didn't
Hansen's...
the Ted Lasso producers say that each season of Ted Lasso is supposed to kind of play out rhythmically like each film of the original trilogy?
Oh, I didn't
like
hear
season
that.
1 was A New Hope, season 2 is Empire, season 3, which will be the final season of Ted Lasso, is going to be Return of the Jedi.
I love that idea.
Yeah,
that would be cool.
Well, they say it's like intentional.
Oh, and they have, they've had a couple of different Star Wars references on the show.
Oh yeah.
And Jason Sudeikis was even in Mandalorian, famously hitting little Grogu. Curtis says, nobody mentioned Obi-Wan's lightsaber not slicing through the stormtroopers. What's up with that? I did notice it because he was kind of hacking away at them. And sometimes you see those sabers just cutting them, cutting through them.
I don't know. I'll have to take a closer look at that.
Yeah.
I didn't really pay attention, but maybe it's just more fun that way.
Yeah. Maybe. Well, this has been tons of fun. It always is whenever we're able to get together on these after shows and hang out with each other. Thanks for all the calls, the comments, and special thanks to This guy right here, Tyler Page. Hey, Tyler.
Hey.
Thanks for all the hard work and queuing up all the callers. We didn't hear from you. What did you think of this episode? Seems to be somewhat based on the chat. Now, the callers all seem pretty excited about it for the most part, but this seems to be one that's kind of got fans split a bit. Where do you come down?
Yeah, I would think fans would be split by this, from what I've seen. I was looking at what I liked. I have my nits to pick as much as anyone else, but when there's so many visual things to look at that I love, it's hard for me to hate it, Really, I lost my mind when he brought out the aquata breather and he's swimming through the ocean.
Oh, yeah.
As a prequel kid, I was like, it just brought back so many memories, and seeing that in person again, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. I remember diving in the pool, trying to go to the bottom, imagining I have an aquata breather.
He hasn't come up in 6 minutes.
And then the air speeders, the snow speeders, whatever you want to call them. Those things, when those flew in and I heard the sound of the blasters, it was just like, oh, chills, man. And the one thing that I don't understand is people hating on Wade. People are like, oh, why they're grieving? Why is the grieving about Wade so big in this episode? And for me, I'm like, well, you saw Dak get shot in the back, and that was kind of like a moment. For me, Wade's death is not about Wade dying; it's about how close Obi-Wan and Leia are to dying. That could have been them, They went in the other speeder.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I think Wade is sort of the meme that has emerged out of this episode. Yeah. If we had to pick a meme for each episode, this would definitely be the one. But, I don't pick on poor Wade. I didn't even notice Wade until he died. Like, I am going to have to go back and rewatch the episode just so I can see Wade earlier and, why people are so tore up. Yeah, at least it wasn't.
You know what? Maybe Wade's death will do something to motivate Sully. It seemed like the two of them were pretty close, maybe even a couple. And maybe that will motivate Sully to do something in these next two episodes, should she show up in them. So, again, guys, this is an emerging story. We still have two more parts. I've only seen 2/3 of this thing. So I just, beg people not to jump to conclusions so fast, but I think it's hard to do now that Netflix has corrupted everyone's viewing habits and they all want to see the whole season at once, and they're conditioned to do that. And so I think that's done a real number on people's attention spans when it comes to watching television, and it's done a real number to their patience. You gotta let it play out.
Let it play out. All right. Thanks, Tyler. As always, it's great to have you and appreciate all of your help. Jimmy Mack, final thoughts. Part 4. 2 left to go.
Well, I got a bunch of them because FJ took up all my talking time in the first half of the show. So here we go. Vader in the Bacta tank. Did anybody notice the Sith eyes clearly visible in the Bacta tank? Sith eyes. I think it was the clearest we've ever seen the Sith eyes on Vader. There's that plate over his throat, too. Did anybody see that? There's like a plate over his voice box, which may contribute to the whole James Earl Jones thing. People have been talking about that since the prequels. Why has his voice changed so much? Well, I think we found out why. There was cross-cutting between Ben in the Bacta tank and Vader in the Bacta tank. And, I know a lot of people don't like the sequel trilogy, but to me, it brought up some notion of a Force dyad connection. Whatever. No repercussions for Obi-Wan getting injured in the last episode. And that's very similar to how they just kind of forgot Finn was sliced in the back when he jumped out of that Bacta tank in The Last Jedi. There's just no repercussions. I think if you're going to injure a character, there should be some sort of repercussions. It's great to see Obi-Wan back in the Jedi robes. When Reva says Obi-Wan is dead, I was wondering, does she really think he's dead? No, she doesn't think he's dead. She was just doing that to intimidate Leia. Let's see what else I got here. The water moon, where the Citadel is in the Mustafar system. So I think that's wild that they have a planet that's all volcanic and filled with hot lava, and then another planet that's nothing but water. What other elemental things do they have going on in the Mustafar system? The planet was called Nerd. Nerd, which is probably short for nerd, which I am for even considering all this stuff. Hey, Jason, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Did you watch this episode with Parker or Bailey?
No, I watched this solo.
All right, because I'm really curious to know how kids react to the interrogation scene of little Leia.
Yeah,
because
I'll
I
give
thought
you
it
a
was
full
kind of
report.
intense, actually.
I thought it was too for a 10-year-old.
You know?
Yeah, I agree.
And so I was just wondering how a kid would relate to that, because when you're a kid and you see other kids in films or TV or whatever, and they're in peril, they're in danger, it always like raises the stakes so high.
Yes.
For a younger viewer. And so I'm just wondering how effective that moment was for little kids. The security officer who's there at the Inquisitor's Citadel, I thought he was pretty cool. I liked his performance. He seemed very imperial to me. You know, the guy who wouldn't let her pass through.
The ginger guy.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure he was a ginger.
Yeah.
I thought we'd see Ben in trooper gear after he took out that stormtrooper. I thought we'd see him wearing the trooper gear, but then that would give people, more chance to complain. We'd already seen that. I love the little Leia sass. The little Leia sass of the week is when she's being mind probed by Reva, and she goes, "Is this a staring contest?" Good one. Good sass. I like the sass. I like the nods to the Imperial March I heard during Obi-Wan's search of the Citadel of the Inquisitor's headquarters. Listen closely, you'll hear it. The comlink on the table felt like a little nod to A New Hope when 3PO left his comlink on the table. The Jedi tomb, some people are saying, why not put those Jedi in carbonite? I don't think they really realized that you could entomb people in carbonite until after Vader puts Han in the carbonite. But do keep in mind that in a season 2 episode of the Clone Wars, Anakin and Obi-Wan and I think Ahsoka too, they all willingly got frozen in carbonite, so their life scans wouldn't show up when they were on some ship or something. I can't really remember what that was all about. Florum was mentioned, so there could be a Hondo Onaka sighting coming up if indeed there's any follow-up, But, I mean, I think she was just blowing smoke, and Florum was just a name used. But you never know. I mean, they brought up Florum, and everyone knows that's where Hondo hangs. Let's see here. I love the stuff with the saber in the dark. Oh, other people are saying the mind wipe. My idea of the mind wipe for little Leia. They're saying it's impossible because Leia, she's too strong. She's too strong-minded. She has good, willpower. Well, I think it would be okay if she did it, with her permission. If she willingly got the Force mind wipe, then that changes things, I think. Elite troopers, very similar to the Purge troopers from Jedi Fallen Order. I think the helmets were a little bit different, but those are that black trooper we saw. Mm-hmm. They refer to that as the Elite Trooper in the descriptive audio track. Wade and Sully, they should get a spinoff like Laverne and Shirley. Vader, I don't really think so. I think Vader looks excellent. I was wondering if we were actually seeing Hayden Christensen in the armor for this episode at the end when he stormed in, because it seemed like
he's in the credits. He's in the credits every week. So
yeah, well, this is true. I mean, he showed up in the Bacta tank.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
And he definitely is in armor for some of this show, but is he in the armor ever with the helmet on? That's the big question. We know that stuff is difficult to move around in, and usually it's stunt guys. 4 episodes, no hello there, thank God, because that's becoming a little cliche. And I really think like a Bacta tank flashback would have been Like, oh, so this is going to be a regular thing now in Star Wars TV shows. And I don't want to get into that predictable kind of territory. The Bacta tank soaks themselves are becoming kind of predictable territory. It's their, it's like putting kryptonite in the lead box for Superman.
Right?
It's just somebody gets injured, drop them into a Bacta tank. That makes everything fine. So, all in all, great episode. Kitster not in this episode.
All right. Well, that'll do it for us. Thanks, everyone, for hanging out. Everyone in the live chat, everyone listening to the podcast. We appreciate it. The website is rebelforceradio.com. The email address, if you want to sound off, show@rebelforceradio.com. We're on all of the various social channels, so please check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. It's a great way to know when we're going to do these RFR live shows. If you're interested in more RFR Live like this, you can consider becoming a Patreon all-access member where you can get the regular podcast that we do just about each and every week in video form. So that's a great option for if you like watching your podcasts. Go to rebelforceradio.com and click on the Patreon banner. But above all, just keep spreading the word and letting people know that you listen to this Rebel Force Radio podcast, the Obi-Wan Kenobi After Show. So if you're doing the water cooler talk tomorrow and talking to friends, be like, I was listening to this podcast, was watching this live stream last night, and they said, and we appreciate that. All right, that'll do it for us. We'll see you next time. Thank you very much, Tyler Page. Thank you, FJ DeSanto, for hanging with us. For Rebel Force Radio, I'm Jason.
I'm Jimmy Mack.
And remember,
the Force will be with you, always.